We are friends who live on mountains.
We are friends who talk good games.
And today we're going to talk an underrated gem, Kirby's Dream Course, the Super Nintendo Kirby golf game. But first, we are going to talk about our favorite Cid themes from Final Fantasy.
Yes, we are. All right. So what we decided before this is that we're going to do our top 3 Cid themes, and we're going to present them to each other live here. I have not talked about this with Matthew at all, but first he's going to go down his top 3. Start with number 3. What are your top 3 Cid themes?
All right, so my favorite Cid themes, number 3 is Final Fantasy 4 Cid theme. Number 2 is Final Fantasy 9 Cid theme. And by far, number 1, even though I haven't heard it in 10 years and I'd forgotten about it, is Final Fantasy 7 Cid theme.
I'm surprised 9 got so high for you. I will.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. I do.
So,
actually,
so what are your 3?
It kind of pained me to not put that one in here, actually. So I'll start. So number 3 is Cid from Final Fantasy Tactics. Number 2 is Final Fantasy 4 Cid, and number 1 is Final Fantasy 7. There's just no way that Final Fantasy 7 Cid is not the best Cid theme.
Yeah.
It feels like it has purpose. There's a lot of purpose to that song.
There is. Like that song. We should just talk about that song first. I forgot that was his theme. I forgot about the song, and as soon as I heard it, I thought this is the theme for the entire, like, not just that game, but maybe for me, one of the best and most representative themes of the series. Like, he as a character and that as a theme both ooze this great quality where, like, Final Fantasy series and that character in particular don't shy away from the fact that it is very, very hard to live a good life as you age. Very hard emotionally, very hard practically, but it is very worthwhile. He is the character who can look at his life and say, like, things did not work out for me in all the ways that I wanted, and I have problems with that, but, like, everything is pointing me towards still trying very, very hard to live a good life, and maybe even have a noble death if I have to.
Yeah, he could have. He could have died in space, and I think he would have been fine with that.
It may be the most noble theme in all of Final Fantasy.
It might.
It's hard not to tear up listening to it. I can't believe I forgot it for 10 years.
I would not have guessed that you would.
I'm pretty thrilled about this segment, honestly, because I've been listening to it on loop for a day and a half and just, like, periodically breaking into, like, streaming ugly cries about how wonderful it is.
I was pretty surprised. I figured you would have 7 in there, but I was surprised that 4 was not your top one. Because that's the one that you used to always be like, I'm going to listen to Cid's theme on loop for the next 2 hours and, like, really do my job.
That one is it's such great work music. Yeah. He's clearly modeled after the pirates from Castle in the Sky, and they're just so likable and so cheerful, big, gruff, crazy. I think he has the second best line of any of the Cids. When he says, "Try stopping this, Golbez, my once-in-a-lifetime unaided flight," and leaps off an airship with a bomb.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a shame that he wasn't the one to call Edward a spoony bard.
Well, Cid 7 even wins the quotes of the Cids, because he's the one who said, that's why I say this plant's still a kid, a little sick kid and trembling in the middle of this huge universe. Someone's got to protect it. You follow me? And that someone is us. Like, yep. What a nice thing to say about your planet.
That might have been the only text in the game where he didn't curse.
I mean, you can curse rarely for effect, or you can curse all the time and then stop cursing for effect.
Yeah, that's what he did.
He's a stop curse for effect guy.
That's good.
So defend TG Cid's Final Fantasy Tactics theme to me, because that is, like, I love that game more than any of the other Final Fantasies. I love that soundtrack, maybe, like, second best. But that song is kind of dreamy nonsense with a military tattoo under it. I can't hum it.
Yeah, I think that I mostly like the song because I just love Cid from Final Fantasy Tactics more than I love the other Cids. But 9 was actually probably my 4th one. And I was going back and forth between putting Tactic. I think more than anything, I wanted to make sure that Final Fantasy Tactics was represented in this episode. Yeah. Because it's by far the best.
Well, we have to give a shout out to I would not recommend playing A2. I haven't played it. I'm not going to play it.
God, no.
But the Cid seems cool, and his soundtrack is great. Like, the Cid's theme from A2 is pretty good. It almost made my list. If I had played the game, it would have made my list.
I can't remember if I beat that game or not. I remember playing it, and I know I have a copy of it sitting around here somewhere. I can't remember if it was so unbearable that I was just like, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't remember Cid at all. So it's probably better that your experience with that Cid is just listening to the song and like not knowing anything else about him.
9 made my list. 9 made my list not for the Cid, who's like entertaining but a douche. He's the one who cheats on his wife and gets turned into a bug for a long time.
The best mustache of all Cids.
He does have the best mustache of all, yeah. But it made my list because one of the other things I love about the series is all of the stately moments, and that's a theme for a king. He's a regent, so it's not really, but it's a theme for a king. He could have that as his King's March.
You know, I think he would have been a king, but I think the reason he was not a king is because he didn't want to have a monarchy, and he wanted there to be more power to the people. So I respect that. Good
quality for him.
One thing, did you listen to Final Fantasy 14, Sid?
Are you talking about Hammerhead Fit from 15 or
no 14?
No,
14.
I did not.
It's a good Cid theme. I didn't play 14 because I don't play MMOs. It's not necessarily like a religious decision, but I just don't play MMOs.
Maybe like a practical for health decision. It's a health decision.
Yeah, you have to put way too much time and effort into an MMO to enjoy it. I think it's a good Cid thing. I would recommend listening to it. I feel like it would have been higher on my list if I knew more about that. Like for example, like TG Cid being number 3 was mostly because I just love that Cid and I want him represented here.
Honestly, at the end of the day, this is like an I love every cat, I wish I could hug every cat situation. Honorable mention to every last Cid, including the ones with no theme. We wish they had a theme. Yes. And sometimes we give them an honorable theme.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to our main topic, underrated gems. This is our first underrated gems episode, and we're starting with our favorite, by far underrated gem, Kirby's Dream Course. Released in 1994 in Japan and 1995 in the US, at the very end of the Super Nintendo's life, like just before the Nintendo 64 came out. This was originally supposed to be either a bowling game in Japan or like a completely unthemed, weirdly realistic golf game called Special Tee Shot in the US. Someone decided to reskin it Kirby because Hal is wonderful. And we got the game that you and I have had, I think, like the longest lived game of your and my life. Because we have essentially, like, periodically played it multiplayer for 20 years now.
Yeah, I was, let's see, not even 7. I was 2 weeks away from turning 7 when this game came out.
I don't think we even, I don't know about you, but I played it very little or not at all when it was out. I rediscovered it as a ROM probably 5 years later.
Yeah, I think I remember. I do remember renting it. Oh man, renting it, such an experience. I remember renting this from the Hastings in Seguin, Texas, at least once or twice when I was a child. But I don't think I ever really played the multiplayer version until you and I got our hands on the ROM later.
Yeah,
which is when I played almost all of the SNES. Like looking back, like almost all the SNES games that I love now, I found because I could steal them later.
This is a very different game single player than it is multiplayer, and you have by far more experience playing it single player. And apparently even has a story.
Yes! I would love to talk about that, because I didn't realize. Well, yeah, so this game has a story. Most Kirby games have a story, although they're very basic. They almost always involve Kirby either being woken up for a nap that he was not expecting to be woken up from, or eating and being upset that his meal has been interrupted by King Dedede. This game is no exception, really. So apparently, in Japan, there's a cutscene before on the title screen that says, after a lazy day, Kirby hopes to have a good dream in the starlight, but he notices that all the stars in the sky are gone except for one. All the following nights are the same way, so Kirby takes a telescope and looks into the... telescope? Okay. Kirby takes a telescope and gazes into the night sky, and as he does, he sees King Dedede floating in the distance, pulling that one single star that was left. And then Dedede somehow realizes that Kirby is watching him with a telescope. I have questions about that. That's fine. And he drops the star and then runs away. Kirby jumps on the star and flies after him. And so basically what happens is Kirby flies to Dedede's castle, which is for some reason a golf course with obstacles.
This is the best game ever. I love it so much.
And what happens here is that King Dedede has somehow implanted all of his minions with the stars that he stole from this guy. So this is the reason why you have to roll through all of his minions on your way to defeating King Dedede.
So it's essentially an amazing mini golf game. You are a Kirby rolling around as a golf ball, popping enemies and collecting their stars. And if you are doing it multiplayer, you are two Kirbys rolling around competing to pop enemies and collect their stars and then fall into a hole successfully. Every multiplayer round of this game is 8 courses, and lowest score wins, like in any golf game. There is not a lot of content here, to be honest. Like there are only 4 golf courses to play. I think there are 4 alternate versions in some copies of it. But
the extra levels, which we didn't realize we've been playing that game for like
years.
15 years, and then we never bothered to actually play the single player version, and that's the way you unlock the extra mode multiplayer courses. That was a shock to me. I think we were together when that happened.
And it was like a jumping up and down. If we're gonna say there's one thing special about this game, though, it's despite that amount of content, this game has surprised us, like really surprised us, like rolling on the floor, laughing, surprised us every single time we've played it for 20 years.
Yeah,
it's only 4 courses, it's only 8 levels. We know all of them by heart. And every single time, something will happen, some character will fall on some spiky pit we didn't even know that you could fall on, and like roll sideways and knock the other guy halfway across the course, and then he'll somehow fall into the hole and win that level. And we're just dying of laughter every time. This is the funniest game to play as a multiplayer game that I have.
I vividly remember distinctly me getting into the hole, but you somehow getting the stars above the hole and being very upset about it, because I wasn't worried about whether or not I was going to win. I just remember thinking like, oh, what the fuck? I remember feeling like I was going to set some sort of record, and by some insane fluke, like I bumped you on my way into the hole, and you like kind of rolled back and like got the stars. But like that's the kind of thing that that happened like at least 10 years into us like playing this game, which is just
yep.
Like, I think we were saying like every single time we played this game,
yep,
like something has happened that we've never seen happen before.
I remember the first time that I thought I was going to beat you, and you really stole it from me. I was ahead by a full course length of stars, and you, for the first time that I ever saw you do it in that particular course, you hole-in-one. I think it was on Krakow. You hole-in-one, or Gordo. You hole-in-one to the final course, like all 8 enemies in a shot. You didn't even have the power that usually makes it necessary to have that, the UFO. You took like 3 guys. The third guy was a multi guy. He turned you into the UFO. You collected everyone, and you got in neatly in about 8 seconds. And I was like, 8 seconds ago, I was going to win. I was really like smoking you. I was going to win this game, and I was really happy about it. And it was a Charlie Brown football moment for me.
Would you care about this game at all if it did not have a multiplayer mode?
Not as much. It would have been like every other Kirby game, where like I remember it fondly as a cute game that I played for a while and stopped. So no, not nearly as much. I remember another time where I think it's the end of Krakow, the one where there are like wind vents on every corner. I remember
and
like
spikes everywhere.
And I remember like a lot of the time when you're new, that one is very hard to finish, but we've played this for a long time. We're fairly good at it. I remember it would just happen to be a day where life was difficult, and we both like we're like reaching and failing for that final hole. And it was like close enough that it mattered for that hole. We're like, I'm gonna win. No, I'm not gonna win. I'm gonna win. No, I'm not gonna win. Like, you know, like the end of like a 3-set tennis game where you're on the sudden death.
That one gets to a point where you're just like, every once in a while you'll be in a multiplayer game and neither one of you will have life anymore, and you're just constantly listening to Kirby go or whatever noise he makes, and like every turn, no matter what you do, like you have to nap for like 2 turns after that. And that particular hole is like, if both of you hit the spikes at any point, you're just going to be in for like 20 minutes of and like frustration, because if you find yourself, when you get to the other end of the spikes, you take your nap, then you wake up, and then you realize that all the enemies are still clear on the other side of the course.
To explain the mechanics of the game, this sounds frustrating, but it's pretty adorable. They took one of the more frustrating One of the more frustrating facts about sort of like golf multiplayer, mini golf multiplayer, or like slow multiplayer games is the both people aren't doing well time. Like trading off doing badly. In this game, if you do badly, your Kirby will have to take a nap. He will sit. He'll dream of cake or pie or ice cream. There's like a little cloud bubble over his head. It takes about 2 seconds. And so doing badly in this game, is like trading off. It's like two very tired people trading off taking naps on a couch. Dreaming of ice cream. It's great.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's break down a little bit the 4 multiplayer courses and like how you feel about the 4 multiplayer courses.
Well, at this point, between the two of us, I would never play. I don't think there's any reason for us to play Wispy Woods ever again.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Even on extra, it's very it's fine. It's just very basic.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say about that. But Shine and Bright, I think Shine and Bright is my favorite one to play, especially with you because you're a bastard, and like.
It's also worth pointing out I've almost never won a single game of Kirby Golf in 20 years. Like with my brother or with the few other friends of ours who know about this, or especially with Trace, it's like a once in a 5-year thing that I win. But if I do, it's going to be Shine and Bright.
It's Shine and Bright.
The central mechanic of Shine and Bright is that every single course has a tile that you can step on to swap stars. So if the other person is ahead, you can quickly get them behind. And on the 3rd time that the tile is stepped on, it becomes permanent. So you swap to get ahead, they swap to bring themselves back ahead, and you swap to stay ahead permanently.
Yeah.
Or it seems simple like that, but because you're also trading stars all the way through the game, it can get very complicated who's actually going to benefit from the Shine and Bright.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I've only ever won Shine and Bright stages basically against anyone of any skill in Kirby Golf.
The thing about Shine and Bright is like you have the patience to let me, cause I don't, and I will just start going after the enemies, and you're perfectly content to just like bounce yourself into a corner and wait until I've like finally like been like I can't take it anymore. I have to like.
It violates your dignity to play badly. It doesn't violate mine.
Yes, that's exactly it. And then I will go get like 6 enemies, and I'll be like all lined up for a whole shot, and then you'll just be like, oh. It sure would be a shame if I stepped on this switch over here, and then I have to go back because I'm not close to the switch. I have to go like another mechanic of the game is that if your Kirby destroys an enemy, you get a star that's your color, and the other person can actually just take your stars by rolling over that star that's sitting. It
sits in a fixed spot, so basically your stuff is available for possession.
Right. So even if you're not playing Shine and Bright, you can steal, which is a thing that you. Is a main part of your game plan, I think.
For both the stealing mechanic and the star swapping mechanic, it's worth pointing out that Shine and Bright has 2 of the longest courses, like by pure length in the game. So you end up really far away from your stuff trying to get to the hole, and like the other person has free reign. And then the swap is placed close to the hole. So there's this difficult strategic decision, like, am I hanging back, stealing this person's... For the crappy person, there's the strategic decision, am I hanging back, stealing this guy's stars, or am I racing ahead to try to get them all at once, but I might miss that thing? Yeah. It's a high-risk operation.
That's the one with the launch ramp, right, where you have to get to the other side?
I think if it is, it's the nastiest hole in the game. That is the worst one. I don't know. I don't think that one is in Shine and Bright, though.
Yeah.
Because I think that's in Krakow.
Yeah.
So moving on to Krakow. Krakow maybe is the least distinguished of the good 3 ones, except for the fact that I think it has that launch ramp.
Yeah, Krakow's not actually super memorable for me. I'm looking at the pictures of this course now, and I remember lots of Krakows. I remember
it's got the launch ramp. It's
got the launch ramp.
I think it's the most grueling one. I think Krakow is the one for the intense play where you can really get stuck.
Yeah. I think I like Gordo the most because you always get just incredibly frustrated during Gordo and kind of like give up on trying anymore.
Gordo is the best one. Gordo is the hard but truly like fun, rewarding one of the 4. And I think it's the one that we end up playing the most.
Yeah.
Because it has the most surprises and it offers the most opportunity for incredible shots and incredible failures, like off the board failures, spiky 6 times. Failures.
Fireball off the sky.
But while we were looking at these pictures, you noticed something interesting, and I'm very curious to hear about that.
Yeah, I want to talk about it here because this. So I was looking at the one in the background, it's like this foresty waterfall background,
Mm-hmm.
And it actually looks a lot like Peaceful Rest Valley from Earthbound, which is kind of interesting because they're both HAL games.
Well, so it turns out that a lot of the sound effects in Kirby's Dream Course are Earthbound sound effects because they were developed by the same studio, HAL, in the same year. So they actually traded a bunch of assets behind the scenes. So this actually shares a ton of style DNA with Earthbound.
It's no surprise that these are like two of my favorite games.
But also, we never knew.
Yeah.
Kirby's Dream Course delivering another surprise, like decades later, for us to find.
You know what's been interesting to me about Kirby's Dream Course is it's been included in like so many anthology projects from Nintendo, but I never knew anyone, like no one ever talked about this while we were younger. Like when it came out, like no one ever really even played it. It just kind of like existed. But then Nintendo goes, and it was one of like the first games that they put on the online store when the Wii came out, and it was on the Super Nintendo Classic. But there seems to be no intention of them to ever do something like this again, and I
think there's a coterie at Nintendo who know how special this was, and speaking from experience, when I tried to program a spiritual successor to this, which you may be seeing on the
screen, went well.
The video version of this. Oh God, someday. But like speaking from experience, I know that this is actually an unusually hard game to nail right. So I think that there's this coterie at Nintendo that know they had something special, know that they are very unlikely to recreate it, and just want to make sure that it's like available as a cult classic for people to rediscover. There is one other group of people, though, it's worth mentioning, that did know about this game and have been popularizing it for a long time. And that's the Game Grumps. They're a popular YouTube or like podcast channel of just some guys who play some games. Not only did they love Kirby Golf, they went to the effort of like modding a ROM of Kirby Golf with 150 extra levels. We have played very little of that game, but the tiny handful of people who love this game say that is like infinite runway for more Kirby Golf.
Yeah, if you can mod that game, you can... And make it basically turn into like Roller Coaster Tycoon Kirby Golf.
This is a game for about 36 people. Thankfully, 6 of them happen to work at Nintendo, and it will never die. And we're very lucky for that fact.
Yeah, you know what's kind of funny. You know, now that it's on the Super Nintendo Classic, and you can play it with an original Super Nintendo controller, I actually feel very weird doing that.
Yeah,
I'm so used to either playing it on a keyboard as a ROM, or later when they finally put it on the Wii Shop, like using a plugged-in GameCube controller. You only need like 3 of the buttons, but you know the GameCube has like 10 buttons, whatever. But it's weird. I think I'm definitely, if you sign me up for a tournament, a Kirby Golf tournament, and I had to play it on a Super Nintendo Classic, I would be like, oh God, like I would actually be nervous. I would be. I don't think I'd be as good at it. And there's no real reason. It's just I'm so used to like
familiarity,
pressing the D key on my keyboard instead of the A button on my Super Nintendo controller.
Yeah, it's had a long life as a ROM and a long life as a Wii game for us.
Do you think if it were not for the I think Nintendo is pretty squarely anti-ROM. Mm-hmm. That's probably core to their business as a company that tries to sell video games. But I think in the case of this game, if it weren't for ROMs, nobody would care about Kirby Golf. Yeah,
at the time I thought that they were too greedy about it. I now understand that they've really built a good nostalgia model, and I do actually have to credit them for keeping a lot of games alive through this nostalgia model. One of the few that was kept alive more by people with ROMs than by them was this one.
Yeah.
And for nostalgia's sake, maybe we should end on your rundown of all the dumbest things that you can remember me ever doing in Kirby Golf.
I mean, all of them involve the fireball. I think here's my favorite is that you being extremely like breaking the fourth wall, like and seeing like cool, we're on a course with the fireball. I'm going to get the fireball and I'm going to do something dumb with this fireball. And then you actually like playing the course very well, and then getting to a point where you're like, I haven't even used the fireball yet. And then you can just like see in your eye that like you're like, I can't end this without using the fireball. I know that I only have like 3 feet to go to the goal and I might win this course, but but if I don't hit that button and at
Ugh.
least see what the fireball is going to do, and then you hit off like 3 different rails, and then maybe you think like, oh, it might not have backfired on me. Like, sure, I didn't get the hole this time, but at least I didn't go flying off the edge. And then you like roll underneath a Krakow just at the right moment where it like zaps you and then bounces you over the rail.
We're playing a different
maybe
game.
Spike.
For you, Kirby Golf is a quiet game of skill, and occasionally you want to goad your friend. For me, Kirby Golf is a perfectly balanced game between my patient, skillful side and my like wild cowboy. I have to just try this thing side.
Yeah,
and usually the cowboy wins because it's long. I can't hold that patience for like 20 straight minutes over 8 courses. At some point, it will break, and I have to use the fireball. I have to use the wheel. I have to try to take a shot that like collects 6 stars. I have to knock you off for just for like vendetta's sake. After all this time, sometimes if I can hit you off the course, I know it's usually not adding up to a good choice, but I have to do it.
But you're smart, and like that. Those are like the 2 things that infuriate me as a Kirby Golf player. Because like I can be playing a very like well strategized and like methodic course, and then you will be like, oh, I could get this power, or if I just bump into this guy, like he might go off the edge. And then another thing we haven't talked about is one of the mechanics is if you go off the edge, you lose 2 pieces of life, which is pretty significant because I think you have 5 or 6 to start with.
I think all my single favorite memories are one person trying to bump the other, missing entirely and going off the edge. And I think the reason for that is because another cute thing, like when you go off the edge in this game, Kirby opens up like Kate Winslet from Titanic, like his arms go wide, he's got a big smile on his face, and he just sails right off to his death. Woo! Off he goes.
And then he comes back and pouts a little bit. That sound. It's such a good sound. Also, we didn't even talk about this, but one of the other things that makes multiplayer really fun is if you bump into the other person, you swap powers.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot
of any Kirby game. Like any Kirby game, this is full of power.
Actually, my favorite and least favorite memory, this will be my last Ken one on this game. My favorite and least favorite memory of Kirby Golf is me having the UFO, you stealing the UFO, and then promptly flying off the edge. It's like, if I can't have you, no one will kind of moment. Like, not even necessarily on purpose. But
that's the thing. I can't remember which times were on purpose and which times were accidental. I know I've done both.
Yeah. That's Kirby Golf.
Yep.
Kirby Golf in a nutshell is just your friends doing infuriating things to you.
Truly the best multiplayer game that certainly of our friendship over a very long time. All right, cool. We have been Friends on Mountains.
We have talked the underrated games.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.